Angel, you're welcome. Okay, let's start. Om Jnana Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumicanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishram Stapitayena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamanam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Rupa Sagrajata Sagana Raghunatavidam Tam Sudivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamsha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kipasindubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So let's start with our sloka recitation. Yes, Modaniki.
Okay, I'll start. It may be a little slow, Prabhu.
Okay. No problem.
Okay.
I have the new verse.
Chapter 14, text 20. Gunan etan atichatrin Dehi deha samudbhavan Janma mrityu jara dukhair Vimuktu mritam ashnate. Translation: when the embodied being is able to transcend the three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Chapter 14, text 26. Mam chayo vyabi charena bhakti Bhakti yogena sevate saguna. What is it? I'll do it again. Well, okay, chapter 14, text 26. We can do this. Okay. Mamchayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samaticha itan Brahma Puyaya Kalpate. Okay. Translation: one who engages in pure devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Hare Krishna. That was tough. Prabhu, you're on mute.
Okay, I said thank you very much. By the time you recite for 1 week, it will become more easier. Yeah. So let's continue from where we stopped yesterday.
Okay, I'll do it, Prabhu. So yesterday we continued with chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. We started with verse 20. So we read that, as I recited, when the embodied being is able to transcend the three modes associated with the material body, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. So what we meant with able to transcend the modes of material nature is that when it means the soul is completely aloof and transcendental. As we explained before, the body is a product of the material nature. So the modes of nature has influence over the body, but not on the soul. Okay, so unless we transcend the three modes, we will not be happy because they'll continue to influence us into bad or good reactions in this material world. Okay, so devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement. And hence, when you're freed from the modes, that is when devotional service begins. Okay, so this is similar to what Krishna had mentioned in 13.22. Okay. And then after this, we connected the verse to Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1, Chapter 2, text 17 to 21. So it emphasizes, these verses emphasizes the devotional service, which is the only way to establish ourselves in the transcendental platform. Hence, in text 17 of this particular canto and chapter, the hearing and chanting is being highlighted. So through hearing and chanting, you can learn more about Krishna. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada has mentioned it many times in the past or in the purports that he created ISKCON to give opportunity for people to hear about Krishna. Okay, because as we all know, spiritual advancement begins upon hearing about Krishna. Okay, in text 18 of this particular canto and chapter, attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to pure devotees are also being described as a way to perform devotional service. So it means hearing more about Krishna, okay, but you do it every day. That is why you're attending these classes about the scriptures, okay? For text 19, when it says here that when you are in, where is that? It says here that when you are engaged in irrevocable loving service, and that is established in your heart, you are, as a devotee, you are in a mode of goodness, and you become completely happy. Now in text 20, it says here that when you've established a mode of unalloyed goodness, you gain scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. And this stage is the start of like your stage of liberation, okay, your moksha. Okay, for text 21, it says here that all of this, the devotional service that is we are engaging into, starts our liberation. And so when we become liberated, we transcend the modes of passion and ignorance. And if we become fixed in devotional service, then we can even transcend the mode of goodness and reach Suddha Sattva, the platform of pure goodness, in order to perceive Krishna, okay? Where we can perceive Krishna, rather. And so we return to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 21, which is connected to chapter 2, text 54, right? So here, Arjuna asks Krishna, which symptoms does one has to have in order to transcend the modes, and what is his behavior, and how do you transcend the modes? So it's almost similar to chapter 2, text 54, only the difference is that in the second or the latter, Arjuna didn't really ask how to transcend the modes. He just asked, what are the symptoms of those that have transcended the modes, okay? So that is why in verses 22 to 25, Krishna answers Arjuna's question. So here, Krishna, in verses 22 to 25, he enumerated the different symptoms of one that has transcended the modes of material nature. And we're not going to go in detail into this because it's quite a long verse, but we focused more yesterday on honor and dishonor, right? Being equal to your enemy and friend, not being envious, and also what else? You're being neutral, okay? We focus on neutrality. So here, Krishna answers by enumerating the symptoms of one who has transcended the modes of material nature. So when you have transcended the modes, you are undisturbed by mundane things, and you make Krishna the center of your life. Okay? You are neutral in many things, in all things, as long as you are not out of the material body. So that's the process. And so we ended everything with you mentioning a saying stated by a Maharaj. I didn't really catch it, Prabhu, yesterday, that in Krishna consciousness, there is a process and a goal. The process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. In order to attain the goal, which is Krishna. And between these two, there is an organization. And in this organization, it is composed by several members. And the members, they have their own shortcomings and challenges that also sometimes affects you. And so you shouldn't let these challenges and shortcomings of other members discourage you into learning the process and reaching the goal. Yes, Prabhu. It should not discourage you to give up the process and to not be inspired to reach the goal. Okay, so that's it, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you for that.
That's very nice. I'm very happy you say whether you didn't catch it, you catch it properly. Yeah, that was what we said yesterday. Yeah, it's very, very important because on this part of spiritual journey, we are going to encounter so many challenges, discouragement, so many things are going to come. Because, see, when you want to do anything important or anything very serious in this world, you are going to face obstacles, not only spiritual part, even on material part also. Immediately you take a decision to go against the odds. But engaging in spiritual life is going against the odds in this world. There are going to be so many challenges and obstacles on the path. Unless you are resolved and taking a vow to remain, it will be very difficult for you to remain focused. So that's why I gave that example I had from a very advanced and self-realized devotee. So we should not allow people, it's just like ISKCON is like spiritual hospital, where we have brought many sick people. Okay, we are all spiritually sick. You see, just like in the hospital, you will take all the people who are materially sick. So in ISKCON, we are spiritually sick. So we have all come for spiritual treatment. So when we come there, some people, after taking some of their treatment for some time, they start getting better. Instead of them to continue the treatment, they will start laughing and criticizing on other people who are taking their own treatment. See that guy. Oh, he's not doing this. See that one. Oh, he's like this. And before you know, instead of you focusing on your own treatment so that you can get more better and better and better, you neglect your own treatment, you stop taking your medicine, and you start focusing more on what other people are not doing right. And by doing this, you get discouraged on the path. And unknown to you, sometimes you give up the process that's supposed to save you. This happens again and again in this part of the spiritual journey. So I'm just saying that we should be very conscious so that we should not allow anyone or anything to discourage us to give up the process of chanting the holy name, which is the only process that can take us to the goal of attaining Krishna Prem, your love of Krishna. And we have to do that in the association of devotees. So we should know that these devotees also, they are not perfect. They are trying their best. And so we should not let their imperfection to distract us from focusing on ourselves, which is the most important thing. Okay? So that is it. So let's continue from where we stopped yesterday. We stopped at 26. So today we are going to 27, isn't it? And the last verse.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, so let's continue. So in text 25, in 26, Krishna mentioned that by engaging in devotional service, one can attain the level of Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Bhuta. What is that? The last line. Sorry. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate means elevated to the Brahma platform. Okay, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Okay, so that is the basis for the beginning of this last verse, which is going to be what will connect us to the next chapter. Okay, so here Krishna says, Brahmano I pratista ham amritasya vyasya cha shashwatasya cha dharmasya sukasya ikantikasya cha. Okay, so he says, I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Okay, so this Brahma platform that Krishna mentioned in the previous verse, that by engaging on devotional service or failing in all circumstances, we will come to that state. So Krishna is describing that he is this base, he is the basis of that impersonal Brahman, of that Brahman. He is the source of it. Okay, the source of that impersonal Brahman, and that impersonal Brahman is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and it is the constitution of ultimate happiness. So let's read the purport, then we'll discuss.
I'll read it, Prabhu.
Yes, Paul. We'll discuss the connection to the next chapter.
Okay. The constitution of Brahman is immortality, imperishability, eternity, and happiness. Brahman is the beginning of transcendental realization. Paramatma is the super soul, is the middle. The second stage is transcendental realization. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate realization of the Absolute Truth. Therefore, both Paramatma and the impersonal Brahman are within the Supreme Person. It is explained in the 7th chapter that material nature is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord impregnates the inferior material nature with fragments of the superior nature, and that is the spiritual touch in the material nature. When the living entity conditioned by this material nature begins the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, he elevates himself from the position of material existence and gradually rises up to the Brahman conception of the Supreme. This attainment of the Brahman conception of life is the first stage, is self-realization. At this stage, the Brahman realized person is transcendental to the material position, but he is not actually perfect in Brahman realization. If he wants, he can continue to stay in the Brahman position and then gradually rise up to Paramatma realization, then to the realize of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many examples of this in Vedic literature. The 4 Kumaras were situated first in the personal Brahman conception of truth, but then they gradually rose to the platform of devotional service. One who cannot elevate himself beyond the impersonal conception of Brahman runs risk of falling down. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that although a person may rise up to the stage of personal Brahman without going further with no information of the Supreme Person, his intelligence is not perfectly clear. Therefore, in spite of being raised to the Brahman platform, there is the chance of falling down if one is not engaged in devotional service of the Lord. In the Vedic language, it is also said, Rasu Vaisa Rasam Hi Ibayam Labanandi Bambati. When one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the reservoir of pleasure, Krishna, he actually becomes transcendently blissful. Taittiriya Upanishad 2.7.1, the Supreme Lord is full in 6 opulences, and when one a devotee approaches him, there is an exchange of these 6 opulences. The servant of the king enjoy an almost equal level with the king, and so eternal happiness, imperishable happiness, and eternal life accompany devotional service. Therefore, realization of Brahman or eternity or imperishability is included in devotional service. This is already passes by the person who engaged in devotional service. The living entity, although Brahman by nature, has the desire to lord it over the material nature world, and due to this he falls down in this constitutional position. A living entity is above the three modes of material nature, but association with material nature entangles him in different modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Due to the association, those three modes, his desire to dominate the material world is there. By engagement in devotional service evolving Krishna consciousness, he is immediately situated in the transcendental position, and his unlawful desire to control material nature is removed. Therefore, the process of devotional service, beginning with hearing, chanting, remembering, the prescribed 9 methods of realizing devotional service should be practiced in association of devotees. Gradually, by such association, by the influence of spiritual master, one's material desire to dominate is removed, and one becomes firmly situated in the Lord's transcendental loving service. This method is prescribed from the 22nd to the last verse of this chapter. Devotional service to the Lord is very simple. One should always engage in the service of the Lord, should eat remnants of foodstuff offered to the deity, smell the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, see the places where the Lord had his transcendental pastime with the different activities of the Lord, his reciprocation of love with his devotees, chants always the transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and observe fasting days commemorating the appearances of disappearances of the Lord in his devotees. By following such process, it becomes completely detached from all material activities. One who can thus situate himself in the Brahman Jyotir or the different varieties of Brahman conception is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus the end of Bhakti Vedanta purport to the 14th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the matter of three modes of material nature. Hare Krishna.
Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the three modes of material nature. Thank you. Okay, so it's very, very interesting. Here, Krishna is saying that Brahmano Pratistha Aham. I am the basis of that Brahman, which is internal, imperishable, and is the ultimate happiness. So we can understand. So Krishna here explaining what he has explained in the previous verse, and Prabhupada explained so much in the purport about this. So before we can come to the platform of pure devotional service, we have to come to this Brahma realization platform first. Not only in this verse, not only in verse 1426, Krishna mentioned this. He mentioned this also in 1854. You see, you can read it also. You can open it and read. Somebody want to read 1854? Krishna mentioned it also there. Somebody want to read?
You're not muted, Mother Nikki.
Oh,
1854.
I'm muted. Okay. Okay, one who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me.
So you can see, Krishna is saying, unless we come to that Brahma platform, that is when we begin pure devotional service. The same thing also he mentioned in this verse 1426. That by engaging devotional service unfailingly, we come to that Brahma platform. And that Brahma platform is the beginning of pure devotional service. Means that if we want to engage in pure devotional service, we have to come to that Brahma platform first. And if you read this 1854, Krishna mentioned there, how do you know once who have come to that Brahma platform? He mentioned it. What does he say? He never anchors or he never laments. Okay? Is it like Krishna mentioned before, the qualities of those who have transcended the modes? That is how you know someone who has come to the Brahma platform. Because they have transcended the modes. That is the platform of Brahman. He never anchors, he never laments. No anchoring, no lamentation. Lamentation means you lament for what you have lost. Anchoring means I want this, I want this. That is gone in his life. It's finished. Okay? You see all living entity as equal. Means he has no enemy, no friends. You see? So this is what it means to be on a Brahma platform. That is what it means to be on a Brahma platform. So we have to come to this stage if we really want to practice devotional service. So Krishna now is explaining in text 27 that I am that Brahma. I'm the basis of that Brahman. And because of that, that is the beginning of chapter 15. Because Krishna say, you say that your devotee surpassing the gunas attain the status of Brahma. So what is this material world made of the gunas? So this is a question from the Acharyas, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti is mentioned this. So what is made of this guna? From where did it begin? What is the jiva who surpasses the samsara by the devotion to you? And who also spoke the jivas being qualified for Brahman? What is that Brahman? And who are you, the basis of that Brahman? So that is the beginning. That is what said the beginning of this the chapter 15 we're entering to. Okay, so what is that Brahman? What is the jiva? What are the jivas? You know, and what is the other one is what is that Brahman? And from where did this begin? From where this Brahman begins? So Krishna is going to explain in chapter 15 the tree, how the tree is of this material world is a reflection of that Brahman. Okay, is whatever we are seeing in this material world is a reflection of that spiritual world. You know, so that is what we are going to learn in chapter 15. Okay, so let's continue to chapter 15. So Krishna is going to use analogy of the Ashwata. Ashwata means the banyan tree. Shri Bhagavan Uvasha Udvamo Namadasha Kam Ashwatam Prahu Avyayam Shadam Si Yasya Pranani Yastam Veda Sabedavit. Okay, the Supreme Personality of God said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its root upward and its branches downward, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. Okay. What is that? Let's listen to Prabhupada's purport. Somebody wants to read?
Okay, I'll read.
Yes.
After the discussion of the importance of Bhakti Yoga, one may question, what about the Vedas? It is explained in this chapter that the purpose of Vedic study is to understand Krishna. Therefore, one who is in Krishna consciousness, who is engaged in devotional service, already knows the Vedas. The entanglement of this material world is compared here to a banyan tree. For one who is engaged in fruitive activities, there is no end to the banyan tree. He wanders from one branch to another, to another, to another. The tree of this material world has no end, and for one who is attached to this tree, there is no possibility of liberation. The Vedic hymns meant for elevating oneself are called the leaves of this tree. This tree's roots grow upward because they begin from where Brahma is located, the topmost planet of this universe. If one can understand this indestructible tree of illusion, then one can get out of it. This process of extrication should be understood. And in the previous chapters, it has been explained that there are many processes by which to get out of the material entanglement. And up to the 13th chapter, we have seen that devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the best way. Now, the basic principle of devotional service is detachment from material activities and attachment to the transcendental service of the Lord. The process of breaking attachment to the material world is discussed in the beginning of this chapter. The root of this material existence grows upward. This means that it begins from the total material substance, from the topmost planet of the universe. From there, the whole universe is expanded. with so many branches representing the various planetary systems. The fruits represent the results of the living entity's activities, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Now there is no ready experience in this world of a tree situated with its branches down and its roots upward, but there is such a thing. The tree can be found beside a reservoir of water. We can see that the trees on the bank reflect upon the water with their branches down and roots up. In other words, the tree of this material world is only a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. This reflection of the spiritual world is situated on desire, just as a tree's reflection is situated on water. Desire is the cause of things being situated in this reflected material light. One who wants to get out of this material existence must know this tree thoroughly through analytical study. Then he can cut off his relationship with it. This tree, being the reflection of a real tree, is an exact replica. Everything is there in the spiritual world. The impersonalists take Brahman to be the root of this material tree. And from the root, according to Sankhya philosophy, come Prakriti, Purusha, then the three gunas, then the five gross elements, Pancha Mahabhuta, then the 10 senses, the Sendriya, mind, etc. In this way, they divide up the whole material world into 24 elements. If Brahman is the center of all manifestations, then this material world is a manifestation of the center by 180 degrees. And the other 180 degrees constitute the spiritual world. The material world is the perverted reflection. So the spiritual world must have the same variegatedness, but in reality, the Prakriti is the external energy of the Supreme Lord, and the Purusha is the Supreme Lord himself, and that is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Since this manifestation is material, it is temporary. A reflection is temporary, for it is sometimes seen and sometimes not seen, but the origin from whence the reflection is reflected is eternal. The material reflection of the real tree has to be cut off. When it is said that a person knows the Vedas, it is assumed that he knows how to cut off attachment to this material world. If one knows that process, he actually knows the Vedas. One who is attracted by the ritualistic formulas of the Vedas is attracted by the beautiful green leaves of the tree. He does not exactly know what the purpose of the Vedas. The purpose of the Vedas, as disclosed by the personality of Godhead himself, is to cut down this reflected tree and attain the real tree of the spiritual world. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. So, this is the beginning of chapter 15. So, Krishna started describing, because in the last verse, Krishna said, I am the basis of the Brahman. So, in further to explain to Arjuna about the nature of this material world and how this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world, which takes its root from that Brahman and is a reflection of the spiritual world, which takes its root from that Brahman that he is the basis of, which is eternal and full of happiness. So Krishna started using this analogy of the banyan tree. So the banyan tree, we're going to hear more of analogy explanation in the coming verses, and this shows that Krishna is going to explain how these trees, the branches and the three modes of material nature, like Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, or the elements, the elements of material nature that we already described in chapter 13. All those things also mentioned here. And how to cut this tree, most importantly, is what is mentioned here. Because Krishna mentioned that by devotional service, one can come to that Brahma platform. But here in chapter 15, Krishna explained that only by detachment, you see, Krishna is going to explain the practical way of how to cut this tree from the root in this particular chapter. Okay, so let's continue. Krishna continue. Adashodam prashrita tasya shaka guna pravida vishaya prabalaya adascha munani anusatatani karma nubadini manusya loke. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. Okay, the same thing again. Krishna is explaining, nourished by the three modes of material nature, because already we have heard in the previous chapters The three modes of material nature is the one controlling everything in this material world. But so when they say something is the one nourishing a particular thing, you can understand what it means. Okay? The twigs are the object of the senses. These three also has its root going down, and these are bound to the fruitive action of human society. Okay? Okay, let's continue. The purport.
I read it, bro.
Yes, please.
The description of the banyan tree is further explained here. Its branches spread in all directions. In the lower parts, there are variegated manifestations of living entities, human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, cats, etc. These are situated on the lower parts of the branches, whereas whereas on the upper parts are higher forms of living entities, the demigods, Gandharvas, and many other higher species of life. As a tree is nourished by water, so this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. Sometimes we find that a tract of land is barren for want of sufficient water, and sometimes a tract is very green. Similarly, where particular modes of material nature are proportionately greater in quantity, the different species of life are manifested accordingly. The twigs of a tree are considered to be the sense objects. By development of the different modes of nature, we develop different senses, and by the senses, we enjoy different varieties of sense objects. The tips of the branches are the senses, the ears, nose, eyes, etc., which are attached to the enjoyment of different sense objects. The twigs are sound, form, touch, and so on, the sense objects. The subsidiary roots are attachments and aversions, which are byproducts of different varieties of sufferings and sense enjoyments. The tendencies towards piety and impiety are considered to develop from these secondary roots, which spread in all directions. The real root is from Brahmaloka, and the other roots are in the human planetary systems. After one enjoys the results of virtuous activities in the upper planetary system, he comes down to this earth and renews his karma, or fruitive activities for promotion. This planet of human beings is considered the field of activities. Hare Krishna.
So what is Krishna describing here in chapter 15? If I want to ask, somebody asks you in the beginning of chapter 15, what is Krishna describing here? Now I'm asking the class a question now. What is Krishna describing here? What is he talking about? Feel free to speak. Don't be shy.
He's speaking about the material tree.
Huh?
The material tree.
Material tree? Oh, he's talking about material
Kshetra
world.
and Kshetragyan.
Yeah, Krishna is talking about the material world. From the explanation we can see, Krishna is talking about this material world, isn't it? And he's using the banyan tree analogy to describe further, to explain to Arjuna how this material world is maintained, how it's operating. Krishna wants Arjuna to get this point properly before we continue to explain about the three modes of material nature in details in the next chapter. Okay, so let's read more. Krishna is talking about the material world. The banyan tree is the material world. He's talking about it. Yes. Here he say, Narupa asyaha tato palabhyate nato nachadi napcha sapratishta ashratame namsurvirudamunam asanga shastre nadride nachitva tata padam tat parimargitadyam yasmin gatanani vatanti bhuyaha tameva shadhya purusham prapade yata praviti prasashrita purani. So here say the real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strong-rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns. And there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began, from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So here in this verse, Krishna is talking that for us to cut this material attachment, to cut ourselves, to get out of this material world, it has to be with detachment. We have to use the weapon of detachment. We have to be detached. And by becoming detached, what happened? Therefore, one must seek that place. One must go back to the spiritual world. How? He has surrendered to the Supreme Personality of God, from whom everything began, for whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So Krishna is telling how to cut this detachment from this material world. That is using the analogy of banyan tree. We have to cut the attachment. What is the weapon for cutting? What is the weapon from getting out of this material world? Detachments. Very, very important. So let's read the purpose. Let's read the purpose, okay?
Okay. It is now clearly stated that the real form of this banyan tree cannot be understood in this material world. Since the road is upwards, the extension of real tree is the other end. When they entangle with the material expansion of the tree, one cannot see how far the tree extends, nor can one see the beginning of this tree. Yet one has to find out the cause. I am the son of my father. My father is the son of such and such a person, etc. By searching in this way, one comes to Brahma, who is generated by the Garbhadaka, say Vishnu. Finally, in this way, when one reaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the end of research works. One has to reach out the origin of this tree, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through the association of persons who are in knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therein, by understanding, one becomes gradually detached from this false reflection of reality. And by knowledge, one can cut off the connection and actually become situated in the real tree, in the real tree. Okay. The word asanga is very important in these connections because attachment for sense enjoyment and lording it over the material nature is very strong. Therefore, one must learn detachment from discussion of spiritual science based on the authoritative scriptures, and one must hear from the person who are actually in knowledge. As the result of such discussion, the association of devotees, one comes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then one first thing one must do is surrender to Him. The description of that list, whence having gone, one never returns to this false reflected ray is given here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the origin, root from the whom everything has emanated. To gain the favor of that personality of Godhead, one has only to surrender, and this is the result of performing devotional service by hearing, chanting, etc. He is the cause of the extension of the material world. This has already been explained by the Lord Himself. Aham Sarvasya Prabhava, I am the origin of everything. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of this strong banyan tree of material life, one must surrender to Krishna. As, as soon as one surrenders unto Krishna, one becomes detached automatically from this material extension. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So in a particular verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, I think it's in Canto 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayodhita Janaya Suvaragam Jnana Chadaya Aitukam. Okay, that is text number. I was looking for it. I got it. Text number 127. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayodhita Janaya Asuvaragam Jnana Chadaya Aitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of God, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquire costless knowledge and detachment from the world. So there, detachment is mentioned as the weapon for which we can cut down this tree of material, this banyan tree of material, like our Prabhupada put it in the purport. That detachment can only come easy by engaging in pure devotional service to Krishna. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janaya Surat Aisvaragam Jana Chadai to come. By engaging in pure and right devotional service, the knowledge and detachment will naturally come. So how do you know that you are engaging in pure devotional service? Naturally, there will be knowledge and detachment from the world. That is the simple way to know whether you are engaging in pure devotional service. You don't need anyone to tell you, okay, am I engaging in pure devotional service? You want to ask yourself the question, you want to answer it yourself. Yes, if you know that you are getting transcendental knowledge, understanding more and more that you are not the body, you are spirit soul, and you're becoming more attached to devotional service, and you are becoming detached from this world, then that means you are already on the platform of pure devotional service, according to this 127 of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayodhika Janaya Surat Ashvaragam Gyanacha Dhyaitukam. So the same thing also here, Prabhupada mentioned in the purport. Same thing. One becomes detached automatically from this material extension by what? As soon as one surrenders to Krishna. So surrendering to Krishna is what brings this detachment that Krishna is talking about in this particular verse. Because only by this detachment we can get out of this material world. No any other means. Okay. Any question or comments regarding that? Okay, let's continue. Nirmana Mojita Sangha Zosha Adhyatma Nitya Vinivrita Kama Gandhva Vimukta Sugadu Gasangai Sangachanti Anmuda Padama Vyayamtat. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material laws, who are free from the dualities of happiness and distress, who unbewildered know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. So in verse 4, Krishna mentioned that then when we become detached, then we should seek for that eternal kingdom. And in verse 5 here, Krishna is saying, how do you know those people who have surrendered? How do you know them? What are the symptoms mentioned here? Free from false prestige, illusion, false association, understand the eternal, and done with material loss. Who are free from the dualities of happiness and distress. They are not disturbed by these things. Again and again, Krishna is mentioning this, free from happiness, duality of happiness and distress. Don't you think it's very important? When someone is emphasizing something again and again, you should take note of that. That is a very big symptom of one who have become transcendental. You want to know whether your guru is transcendental? This is how to know. You want to know whether a sadhu is transcendental? This is how to know. He's free from the duality of happiness and distress. He's not bothered by happiness. He's not distracted by distress. That is the major symptoms. Krishna keep on mentioning these symptoms again and again when he's talking about this. Okay. So Krishna mentioned here the qualities of one who has already surrendered to the Lord. Okay, let's read the purport.
Yes. The surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluged by the pride, because the conditional soul is puffed up, thinking himself the lord of the material nature. It is very difficult for him to surrender onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not a lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. When one is free from delusion caused by the pride, he can begin the process of surrender. For one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. Pride is due to illusion. For although one comes here, stays for a brief time, and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated and is always in trouble. The whole world moves under this impression. People are considering this world, this land, this earth to belongs to human society, and they have divided the land under the false impression that they are their properties. One has to get out of this false notion that human society is the proprietor of this world. When one is freed from such a false notion, he becomes free from all the false association caused by the familiar, social, and national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. And when one has to an understanding of the things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conceptions such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. He becomes full in knowledge. Then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna.
Prabhupada mentioned right from the beginning. In this verse, Krishna is describing the surrendering process. And what is the first quality of one who wants to surrender to the Lord? Must be free from
Pride.
Pride. Very important. Yeah, one should not be deluded by pride, thinking that I'm this, I am that, I'm great. The whole world is functioning because of my presence. Who told you before you came in, everything was functioning? When you leave, everything will continue to function. Who told you that everything is functioning because you are there? This false pride is always here, always in our mind. So that is the first process of surrendering. So we have to give up false pride. The whole world is, Prabhupada mentioned, the whole world is running on this false pride. This land belongs to me, this place belongs to me, that. So with this false deluded notion, we cannot surrender to the Lord. Because it is mentioned in the previous verse, only those who surrender to the Lord can go to that his eternal abode. So Krishna is going to describe that his eternal abode now. Let's listen to it. Pasayate suruyo nashashankona pavaka yagatwanana nivantate tadama parama mama. Very nice. I love this verse. I learned it 20 years ago, or before that time, also maybe 25 years ago. I learned this verse. Very nice verse. Very simple also. He says, that supreme abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. Okay? So Krishna is continuing to describe that abode where those who are surrendered to him will go ultimately, after cutting the attachment to this material world, that he has extensively described what is controlling the material world, the three modes in chapter 14. How everything is manipulated, how the three modes is controlling everything in the material world. And so in the beginning of this chapter, I described little about that material world and how to get out of this material world. And that is by detachment. By detachment and surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if you surrender to him, he gave the symptoms of those who have surrendered. Free from false pride, they're not affected by the duality of happiness and distress, and many quality Krishna mentioned in text 5. We can go and read them again and again. And here he said, so those people come to that abode. And here he described that his abode briefly. It's a transcendental place. It doesn't need electricity. Let those who are controlling the electricity in the Philippines switch off the light. Now everywhere will become dark. So we're depending on them, you see. But in that abode of Krishna, they don't need electricity. Everything is bright. No moon there. We don't need moon there. You see, you don't need sun. Tomorrow morning we'll be waiting for the sun. Just imagine if we waiting for tomorrow and the sun does not rise, you know? Just imagine how miserable we'll be. So here we depend on the moon and the light and the electricity. But in that abode of Krishna, such thing does not, they don't depend on that. There's natural effulgence from, brightness from Krishna's body. that place, you can just imagine. Just that effulgence from the Krishna body is what is powering the sun here in the material world. Just imagine how that is abode will be. And it is mentioned, don't think that his abode will be hot like the sun we are feeling here. Here, just by getting the light from the sun, sometimes we feel very hot during the summer. But in that abode of Krishna, that illumination is blissful, is happy, is full of happiness. It's not like the one that is giving pain here. That one is it gives happiness. It's blissful. You're enjoying it. It's not too cold. It's not too hot. It's very beautiful. Described in Brahma Samhita. We can go and read it up there. Okay, so let's read the purport.
Read it, Prabhu.
Yes, please, my friend.
The spiritual world, the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, which is known as Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavana, is described here. In the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity, because all the planets are self-luminous. We have only one planet in this universe, the sun, which is self-luminous, but all the planets in the spiritual sky are self-luminous. The shining effulgence of all those planets called Vaikunthas constitutes the shining sky known as the Brahma Jyotir. Actually, the effulgence is emanating from the planet of Krishna, Goloka Vrindavana. Part of that shining effulgence is covered by the Mahat Tattva, the material world. Other than this, the major portion of that shining sky is full of spiritual planets, which are called Vaikunthas, chief of which is Goloka Vrindavana. As long as a living entity is in this dark material world, he is in conditional life. But as soon as he reaches the spiritual sky by cutting through the false, perverted tree of this material world, he becomes liberated. Then there is no chance of his coming back here. In his conditional life, the living entity considers himself to be the lord of this material world, but in his liberated state, he enters into the spiritual kingdom and becomes an associate of the Supreme Lord. There he enjoys eternal bliss, eternal life, and full knowledge. One should be captivated by this information. He should desire to transfer himself to the eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. For one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut the attachment. But if he takes to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached. One has to associate himself with devotees, those who are in Krishna consciousness. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness and learn how to discharge devotional service. In this way, he can cut off his attachment to this material world. One cannot become detached from the attraction of the material world simply by dressing himself in saffron cloth. He must become attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, one should take it very seriously that devotional service, as described in the 12th chapter, is the only way to get out of this false representation of the real tree. In chapter 14, the contamination of all kinds of processes by material nature is described. Only devotional service is described as purely transcendental. The words paramam mama are very important here. Actually, every nook and corner is the property of the Supreme Lord, but the spiritual world is paramam, full of 6 opulences. The Katha Upanishad 2.215 also confirms that in the spiritual world there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, or stars. Na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam. For the whole spiritual sky is illuminated by the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. That supreme abode can be achieved only by surrender and by no other means. Hare Krishna.
By surrender, by no other means. So tomorrow, Krishna is going to tell us how we are eternally part of him. We are supposed to be in that spiritual abode, but because we are here in the material world, struggling with our mind and senses, we are not able to achieve that. So stay tuned for tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Any comment, question? So far. Already time is over. So maybe we can keep your question for tomorrow. We can take it tomorrow. No, tomorrow is presentation day. Good. Very good. Tomorrow is presentation day. Very good. So tomorrow you will have 10 minutes for your presentation because it's a whole chapter. Okay, you have 10 minutes, and if you need more, you let us know. We can, because this presentation is like examination. Okay, so that's how we're assessing how much you understand. You know, your understanding of the chapter, like that. So tomorrow is going to be tomorrow. Please come early. And you just tell me earlier if you need more time. We are going to give 10 minutes to everyone. If you don't need up to 10 minutes, let me know. If you need more than 10 minutes, you let me know. Okay, po. Thank you, po. Maraming salamat po. Hare Krishna po. Vanchaka patarubhyascha kipasindubhyacha. Patitana panavanubhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. See you tomorrow during the presentation. Hare Krishna.